看国际辩论社第45集的播出，在以色列扬言进攻加萨走廊的最后城市拉法之后，美国一度是推迟供应炸弹给以色列，还公开表示了，如果以色列持续的进攻拉法，不排除进一步暂停供应武器给以色列。这就气得以色列的总理纳坦雅胡他扬言，有必要的话将用指甲作战。为什么会选择在国际谴责之下持续在进攻呢？而以哈之间的纠葛，稍后的观点好谈，我们有来自于以色列以及巴勒斯坦的学者带我们做进一步了解他们所处的处境。那么在这周，首先要来看到的是美国频繁出现了强大的龙卷风，这个巴西强降雨爆发了100年洪灾，菲律宾还出现了体感摄氏50度的超高温，全球到处都有极端气候，让人很担心大自然是否已经开始反扑。
美国内布拉斯加州出现强大的龙卷风，每小时254公里的风速，15秒把一座工厂给夷为平地。幸好员工平安无事，龙卷风所到之处就像被炸弹轰炸，民宅倒塌，社区满目疮痍。
Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! Jesus, please spare us, Jesus.
田纳西州居民被龙卷风困在路上，面对大自然的力量，只好不停祷告。美国近来气候恶劣，从5月7号开始，中部和东南部出现许多风暴。
We didn't have much warning. Once we knew that it was happening and we saw what was coming, I knew that it wasn't right. We got downstairs. That's all we could do.
龙卷风吹垮建筑物，可能引起电力中断、瓦斯管线破裂，民众无暇顾及财产，先求自保，便躲进地下室避难。事后看到家当随风而去。密西根州的龙卷风甚至还把大树连根拔起，联邦快递公司物流中心屋顶也被掀开，一度造成50人受困。当地在5月7号发布史上第1个龙卷风警报。
Certainly, I think with climate change, the continuous increase of devastating events like this, we've got to continue to evolve as well as we think about how do we protect one another.
美国龙卷风通常在春季形成，到了夏季进入尾声。专家分析指出，由于暖化让夏季的时间延长，龙卷风可能有浓缩效应，也就是短期内数量更加频繁。
imagem que a gente recuperou de agora.
极端气候肆虐全球，在巴西有一匹马被困在屋顶，周围淹起大水，让它无处可逃。无助又孤单的身影获得关注，当局出动救援小队，成功拯救马儿，举国振奋。
Foram sedados pelos veterinários da Ubra, junto com os bombeiros de São Paulo, e colocado em bote e trouxemos. Agora vamos encaminhar lá para o hospital da Ubra. O nosso objetivo é salvar todas as vidas.
南大河州发生1941年以来最严重水患，部分城市淹水情况打破150年的最高纪录。降雨让伊瓜苏瀑布水源丰沛，变得更加壮观。可是灾民眼中却是一场噩梦。
Veio a enchente e levou tudo. Sem casa, sem trabalho, é só pedir força. Mas eu acredito que Deus está com nós.
居民仓皇避难，身家财产全部付之东流。不止民宅泡水，球场更是变成湖泊，就连机场跑道也被淹没，民航客机变成水上飞机，城镇宛如湖面孤岛。
Até a última hora, até o último segundo, até o último momento que essas águas não abaixar, não vou desligar o trator, vou estar continuamente aí para resgatar e buscar pessoas.
由于南大河州位于热带和极圈的交界，不是暴雨就是干旱，天灾加剧，而且恐怕更为频繁。问题追根究底还是气候变迁。
Climate change is intensifying these extreme events. It is intensifying the water cycle and affecting the rainfall patterns. This brings more intense rainfall and flooding, but also more intense drought in many regions.
有些地方狂风暴雨，其他地方却是热得要命。菲律宾的学校有学生扇子不离手，根本无法专心听课。当地4月飙出43度高温，体感上看50度，政府宣布学校暂时停课。
Ang init ay pumatak ng 40 and above. So ang nangyayari po ang mga bata ay hindi papasok. Ganun na rin po ang mga guro, hindi na rin papasok. Ngunit meron kaming asynchronous, pwedeng magbigay na activities sa mga estudyante, pwede rin mag-online.
为了对抗热浪，政府还推出行动淋浴车，协助民众消暑降温。热浪来袭，吕宋岛水库的干旱还造成水下300年历史的古城意外重见光明。另一方面，农民看天吃饭，担心收成欠佳，影响生计。
Talagang yung sobrang init na yan, hindi ka na makakapag-produce talaga ng matinong gulay at saka prutas.
菲律宾半数省份大闹干旱，土地严重皲裂，农作物来不及收成就被烈日晒干。农民抱怨，就算采收了也卖不出好价钱。暖化加上圣婴现象，导致气温飙升，极端气候未来恐怕成为常态。
All these records that we've seen tumbling in the past few months, many scientists have asked the question whether there could be a shift in the climate system. I think that's one of the questions that is keeping climate scientists busy at the moment.
恶劣天气不是单一现象，全球不停刷新纪录，不论是冰天雪地或洪水泛滥，森林大火还是酷暑热浪，地球似乎变得越来越不适合人类居住。 根据环境部和国科会的报告，台湾的暖化会持续到世纪末。如果无法控制温室气体排放，夏天将长达7个月，还有75天气温超过36度。面对极端气候的新常态，你我都要严阵以待。
这周我们有新单元德国新观点，与德国之声合作，为大家带来不同的新闻分析。这周呢，要先带您关心德国的政治暴力问题是越来越严重了，政界人士屡屡遭受暴力攻击。联邦内政部长召开了紧急峰会，讨论如何来防治政治的暴力事件。
A run-of-the-mill campaign event turns ugly. A Green politician set upon by 2 bystanders, threatening our camera team and spitting on her.
Ey, sag mal, spinnst du?
We've joined Yvonne Morsler, who is running for local office in Dresden. Her party, the Greens, have become a prime target of political violence in recent months.
I think it's especially important in this district, where you have a lot of non-voters, to maybe motivate them again to vote and to at least show your face and to say we're here.
As the team moved to another area, the mood became tense. A group nearby shouted a banned Nazi slogan. And support for the far-right AfD party. Then this happened.
Down with this rubbish.
You know you're breaking the law. Why are you doing this?
While Morsler documented the evidence, another group started heckling her and her team, calling them pedophiles.
Diese Kinderficker, okay? Ist mir egal.
They decided it was best to retreat.
Well, you see that the arguments are not founded, but it's something they've picked up somewhere. I hadn't heard this one before, actually. It's a new one for me. But yeah, we'll keep on fighting.
But they don't get far before they're confronted.
Delete that picture right now.
Camera off.
Turn the camera off.
Can someone call the police?
You delete that photo, you bloody green.
Hey, are you crazy?
As the pair intimidate the group and demand that they delete their pictures, witnesses try to reach the police.
Delete my photo now.
So, first of all, it took a long time before we got through to them. Then they didn't take the matter seriously, and then they said that they will take 5 to 10 minutes, even though they were told that threats were made against the group. Just so you know, the police station is a 3-minute walk away from here. I'm extremely personally disappointed, and I think this is something we will have to talk about.
Police officers eventually arrived. Officials say they're investigating the suspects for assault vandalism, and for using unconstitutional slogans.
而德国新观点，我们要持续来了解，现在在德国的另类选择党的支持者越来越多，甚至是越来越多的年轻人转向支持右派。我们要连线给德国之声台北办事处主任邹宗翰来为我们说明原因。
在我们开始讨论前呢，我想先说明一下，最近德国呢很多类似的攻击，就在我们拍到影片的同一天，另外一位社民党的政治人物也在柏林一家图书馆被攻击头部，然后送医住院治疗。那我们刚才影片当中看到的政治暴力事件是发生在前东德的城市德勒斯登。台湾的朋友可能听过，德勒斯登就是台积电要去设厂的地方。特别提前东德是因为另类选择党在这边的几个州蛮受欢迎的，在全国呢也有大约20%的支持率，其中呢很多是年轻人。那你刚才问为什么德国年轻人转向支持右派呢？从很多的研究发现30岁以下的德国年轻人对社会跟经济状况越来越不满意，特别是在新冠疫情之后，通货膨胀啦、高房租、俄乌跟以哈战争都让德国的社会更加分裂。那像这样的负面情绪呢，就把年轻人推向了右派，甚至是极右派，因为他们觉得政治人物呢听不到他们的声音，有的呢甚至开始质疑民主。这群最不常投票的人开始受到民粹主义者的吸引。那为什么？因为极右派的政客呢，很会创造口号来回应复杂的政治还有社会问题，像是他们会说德国要正常，或者喊说有勇气说实话这种口号。所以你发现了吗？很适合在社群媒体上面传播。他们在 YouTube、IG 还有脸书跟 TikTok 上面的表现很好。但从德国的例子也发现如果民粹主义者只是出一张嘴说要打击腐败或者是解决不平等，没有带来实质改变的话呢，支持率就会停滞，很快其实就会被年轻人抛弃。之后这些政党呢就会开始攻击法律还有民主的机构，甚至开始针对社会上的少数跟弱势群体，比如说移民还有难民。这些煽动性的言论呢，除了带来社会分歧之外呢，更会助长暴力还有仇恨犯罪，就像我们刚刚影片当中看到的攻击事件一样。
Let's talk. Joining us now is Maura Sobel. Professor Sobel is the Assistant Professor of Diplomacy and International Relationships at Danjiang University. Welcome, Professor.
Pleasure being here.
The first question would go to that we know there's so many pro-Palestinian protests going on globally, especially in the universities. Even graduations were canceled because it's such a large scale. But at the same time, people in Israel actually starts to go against the Israeli government of using the armed force as well. Mm-hmm. But the Israeli government seems to be very strict and insisting on this armed force attitude. So why is that?
Yeah, well, definitely there were many demonstrations since Israel started its operation in the Gaza Strip. But now the situation escalated dramatically, mainly in the US, but also in Europe. And there are demonstrations also in Israel calling for ceasefire. But we have to differentiate between the different actors and why people are demonstrating, right? Generally speaking, anyhow, I don't think that the Israeli government will be influenced by the demonstrations. They have a clear idea what they want to do, which is to continue with the operation and eliminate Hamas. In the context of the Israeli demonstrations, I think that the idea is not about whether we want Hamas out or not, it's about what comes first. And for many Israelis, what comes first is the release of the 132 hostages being held in Gaza. They want that first and then to continue the operations because they think that if we go into Rafah, that might lead to
the danger of the hostages.
Yes, indeed. With the other demonstrations around the world, here I think that there is a mixture of motives between anti-Semitic groups to Islamic groups to pro-Palestinians and a lot of demonstrations that are being held on college campuses are actually being organized not by students. So there is other actors involved here, but obviously they are of grave concern and they definitely damage the international legitimacy of Israel and its operations.
Because of the government structure that's actually going on now in Israel, we can see that the Knesset, even though it's almost like it's half that it's far right, but it's not overall far right. But now the Israeli government seems to be overall far right. So what is going on?
Well, it's slightly more complicated than that. And Netanyahu is really in a very, very difficult situation. Because Netanyahu, one could argue, is being held by his coalition partners. Netanyahu is leading a very, very fragile coalition, which consists of far-right partners that have a very, very clear idea what they want to do, right? And he needed to please them, keep them happy, or at least not angry, in order to keep the government intact. Because once the coalition falls and his government falls, that's most probably the end of his political career, and not to mention his very problematic legal issues that he will have to face. So Netanyahu is really trying not to go against them, but it's still on a level of statements rather than deeds. I don't think that a far-right extremist policy is what Israel is about, or what leads Israel forward in its relationship with the Palestinians.
Can we say that the democracy in Israel is falling apart?
I cannot say that democracy is falling apart. You definitely could see very worrisome trends, and those trends started even before October 7th and even before this government. There were very dramatic demonstrations and turning events following the attempt to do judicial reforms in Israel, and actually to break the separation of branches, and that the executive branch will hold power on the judicial branch, and that was very worrisome to a lot of Israelis, and that's why hundreds of thousands of Israelis go out to the street to demonstrate against the government. Now, I would like to make something very, very clear, that most of the Israelis are against Netanyahu and against the views of his government, but they are definitely on the same page regarding the objective of eliminating Hamas. The only difference here might be what comes first, the hostages or eliminating Hamas.
Like, according to Hazem, what he told me was that for Palestinian people, we're also under high pressure control under the Israeli government. Especially at the border, they see very terrible things happening, and they're not even treated like humans. So who are we actually freeing them from? Is it from the Israeli government? Is it from the Hamas? Or
I think that the Palestinians are in a very, very tough place.
Yes.
Because definitely it's very, very difficult to live under Israeli occupation, but it's also very, very difficult to live under authoritarian regime, because be it Gaza or be it the West Bank, there is no democracy there. Yeah, there are no elections. Once the winning party won the elections, that's the end, right? That's why there are no elections in the West Bank as well, because the Palestinian Authority are afraid that Hamas will win, and that will be the end of the Palestinian Authority. And here I think that at least, or especially under the current settings, both people deserve better leaders, because otherwise we won't be able to move forward.
Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like you believe that Hamas is actually a sort of asset for the Israeli government.
Yeah, well, Hamas was considered an asset to the Israeli government. And the issue was that under the leadership of Prime Minister Netanyahu, for quite a long time, the Israeli government saw Hamas as a valuable political actor, because Netanyahu was not very interested or was not very motivated to move forward with peace negotiations. And the rise of Hamas provided a perfect argument why we cannot move forward from the Israeli side. Because the argument is, listen, you have two Palestines. You have one Palestine in Gaza, controlled by Hamas, one Palestine in the West Bank, controlled by the Palestinian Authority. They do not get along, both organizations. It's much beyond being a political competitor like DPP or KMT. They are enemies. Put them in the same room, they will kill each other, something that actually already happened following the elections in Gaza. So the Israel argument will be, how can we move forward with negotiations when you have two Palestines? So who we are supposed to talk to? And that obviously has proved to be a grave mistake because with all the problems of the Palestinian Authority, corruption and some other problems, it's still the more rational, moderate actor in comparison to Hamas. So if we want to move forward, we need to re-establish a better relationship with the Palestinian Authority.
Okay, so ceasefire seems not possible currently. The military use is continuing. Would it actually eliminate Hamas?
Well, here we touch upon the question of what do you mean by eliminate Hamas, right? So we could divide this question into the military power, or the military component, and the political component. Militarily, definitely, Israel and the IDF could eliminate Hamas. To some extent, in short and medium term,
Israel... That'll be the current member of Hamas.
Yeah, Israel has already done it. Hamas, for the time being, is done as a military organization. With all the respect to the 4 battalions still in Rafah. As an organized military structure, Hamas is done. But this is not the problem. The problem is the political component. Because we have seen in the last couple of months that every time that Israel and the IDF leaves a certain area in the Gaza Strip, Hamas immediately goes back and seizes power. Even in case where some local actors are trying to step in, Hamas will execute them just in order to make a point, we are in charge. No one else could replace us. And without a plan, who comes after Hamas, who is going to de-radicalize the Palestinian population in Gaza, who is going to demilitarize Gaza, we are facing a problem because if Israel leaves Gaza, Hamas immediately will take power again and regain its power as the governor of Gaza, and maybe after a couple of years rebuild its military capabilities, and we are back to square one. Yeah, so Israel and the international community has to ensure that there is a plan for an actor to put instead of Hamas in Gaza.
Definitely, and especially when there's so many orphans that's currently children became orphans in Gaza under all these attacks. When they grow up, they might form the next generation of Hamas. This is just like an endless cycle of tragedy. So how is that ever able to eliminate?
Well, that's obviously a very, very difficult question. And to say that there is no hope is it's a bit depressing. We have to make sure that there are people who are working towards a certain goal to make life better for everyone. And if we look at the history, Germany changed, Japan changed after the Second World War. Israel made peace with some of its most bitter enemies. Yeah? So we have a possibility to do something, but we have to make sure that we will do it the right way. And what do I mean by that? First, Hamas and Netanyahu's government have to go. Yeah? We need other leaderships. Both people deserve better leaderships. Beyond that, if we're talking on the Israeli side, if we want to create a new government, it will be better that it will be slightly more moderate. And I think that it will be wise to give a stronger role for the Arab communities in Israel, because their perspective on the conflict changed dramatically after October 7th. Yeah? So to bring them into the government, Arab politicians and Arab parties, in order to have more local stakeholders. From the Palestinian side, obviously Hamas has to go. The Palestinian Authority, with the support of the international community and other Arab actors, have to deal with the reconstruction of Gaza and have to make sure that there are other actors in Gaza who will make things better for everyone. And here I'm not only talking about infrastructure and rebuilding Gaza, but the mindset of the Palestinian population in Gaza has to change, in Gaza and in the West Bank. And that's going to take time. Yeah? Not only because of 75 years of occupation, but the mental and physical scars for the Palestinians and the Israelis, it will take time, but it will have to be together with Arab actors and not only Israel and Western alliance, and it will have to be top-down, much like what Arab countries did following the Abraham Accords, to change the mindset of their own population regarding their perspective about Israel.
Eventually will appear. Thank you so much, Mor, for joining us and sharing with us your expertise.
Thank you.
For today's program, we welcome Dr. Hazem Amastri. Hazem is a Palestinian researcher who focuses on social and cultural research and studies. His journey has taken him 8 years ago from the Gaza Strip to Taiwan, and his unique personal experience has shaped his point of view and his perspective, and he's here to share with us his own expertise. So thank you, Hazem, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me here.
We know that Hamas now is, there's a lot of different labels in the international society we would like to discuss further on later. But first, how did Hamas start emerging in Gaza?
Hamas started emerging in Gaza by using religious roaming, and it was a religious group. Hamas was seen as a part of the Muslim Brotherhood. That organization was established in Egypt in the 1920s. So they started as a religious group, and then they developed themselves to be social and economic network. And then they declared themselves as a political and resistance movement, especially after the beginning of the first Intifada in 1987. So they get involved in that uprising against the Israeli occupation. And the main demand Hamas wanted was the first one, end the Israeli occupation, gaining our independence, and the right of the Palestinian people to return to their homes and lands that Israel expelled them in 1948. And if you look at Hamas members and leaders, you will find that most of them are refugees or the children of the refugees who were expelled by Israel in 1948. And the United Nations issued several resolutions about it, calling Israel to allow the Palestinians to return their homes and lands, like the resolution number 194. But Israel, until now, doesn't obey to that resolution. So if you go to any Palestinian place or you find any refugees, Palestinian refugees, you will find Hamas there, because Hamas carries their dreams of returning to their homes and lands. And go back to 1987, when Hamas was established officially as a political movement, there was no resistance inside Palestine. Most resistance was outside Palestine. First was in Jordan and then Lebanon. But after the invasion, the Israeli invasion of Lebanon in 1982, the Palestinian resistance led by Yasser Arafat moved to Tunisia. And Tunisia was not a neighboring country. So the Palestinians thought about a way to resist Israel from inside Palestine. But the problem was that Israel was, or now the Israeli army, was and now among the best equipped and trained army in the world. And the Palestinians, on the other hand, they didn't have any weapons to resist Israel. Any weapons, even small weapons, even a small gun machine or pistols. They didn't have any tools to resist Israel. So they used very simple tools like stones, like Molotov cocktail, or even kitchen knives to resist Israel. And with the time, Hamas and other Palestinian resistance movement developed their ways and the means that could resist Israel through, including using gun machine, and they started to smuggle weapons from Israel, especially from the black market in Israel. And they extended their work in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank and other regions, especially in the refugees camps.
So according to the explanation that you just gave, I perceive it as Hamas started out as a group of defending themselves at first, with all the weapons that they have in hand. It might not be like very useful ones, but they started and then they grow bigger and larger and stronger. But now in the international society, yet perceiving them with labels such as terrorists, which I assume that you wouldn't agree on this, right? On this definition. Can you explain to us why it's actually not, you don't perceive it as that way?
We don't consider Hamas as a terrorist group for sure, because it is our basic right to resist any occupied people. It is enshrined in the international law. Any occupied people has right to resist the occupation with any means, including the armed struggle. And we use that right now. And Hamas didn't go beyond that right. It didn't kill any other people who didn't involve the occupying system. I want to give you a point about Israel and Hamas. Many people see Israel as a nice country, beautiful country. It has very strong economy and infrastructure. Okay, and even when you involve and when you talk to Israeli people, you will feel that they are nice and warm. But for us, for me as a Palestinian, I never seen that side. We only see the ugly face of occupation. Israel established an apartheid system and a repressive system for the Palestinian that sharply affected our life, negatively for sure. So how to respond? How to respond on all of this atrocity? Not about Gaza. If we want to talk about the Israeli behavior, it is not about Gaza now. It is also, you can see them, they treat us like animals. And they underestimate our lives. Go to the West Bank and see the checkpoints and see how the Israeli soldiers deal with the Palestinians. They treat them like animals on the checkpoints. And they kill Palestinians for no reason, not only in the Gaza Strip, also they blowing up the heads of the children in the street and women, like our journalist Shirin Abu Akleh last year, when the Israeli army blowing her head up for no reason, without an investigation, and no one held accountable for these crimes against Palestinians. So how to respond on all of these atrocities? We need someone to defend us. If you don't like Hamas, okay, please, we can dismantle Hamas, but please find a solution for us to get rid of this miserable condition under the Israeli occupation. They don't want to grant us our independence. They don't want to grant us equality. So we cannot stand. No one will accept our situation. So a lot of Israeli officials said that if I am Palestinian, I will join to a terrorist organization, especially Hamas and Islamic Jihad. So we have no choice. I hope the killing machine will stop. I hope no killing will be on Palestine and Israel. I hope that. But it is not acceptable to make the killing machine working on us while the occupier enjoy their lives and live peacefully. It is not acceptable.
Are you aware of some of the actions of Hamas, such as like using human shields of Gaza people?
Using human shield, I think the purpose behind this accusation is to justify the Israeli massacres against the Palestinian citizens and to show Israel that side who cares about the Palestinian lives and to show Hamas as indifferent to its people's life. So they will try to show Israel as the ethical side. But here, let me put everything in its context. Israel, according to the international law and to the UN resolution, is an occupying entity, occupying power. And we need to know that occupation doesn't and never align with ethics, because occupation by nature is aggressive. Occupation by nature is oppressive, is violent. Occupation by nature is not ethical. So this is the main point we need to understand. And so I want to ask a question here. Since when the occupying power cares about the occupied people's lives and welfare? Since when Israel cares about the Palestinian people's life? Since when the Palestinian blood is valuable for Israel? Actually, they like to kill us for no reason. While Hamas, on the other side, belongs to the Palestinian people who have the fundamental right to resist the Israeli occupation. And Hamas stems from the noble notion of rejecting oppression represented in the Israeli occupation. This is the main point. And for my experience, I spent most of my life in the Gaza Strip. I never seen or heard about Hamas taking Palestinian citizens to its military side as a human shield. Israel kills us in our home. They bombard the houses while people are sleeping inside it, even without any member of Hamas in that building. So it is just a joke. For example, one of my teachers, he taught me when I was in high school, and he also was one of my relatives. He belongs to my extended family. Israel bombarded his house. He was killed. His wife was killed. His children were killed. His grandchildren were killed. So the entire family was written off from civil registry. And no one of them belonged to Hamas. And no one outside of this family were killed, so no Hamas member. So, and then the Israeli spokesperson on that day declared that Israel killed 400 members of Hamas. So they included that guy. Why? He mentioned that? Because no one checked after them. No one investigate. No one hold them accountable. For me, for my experience, they killed my mother. I don't know to whom I should complain, how to sue them, how to sue the perpetrator of that crime, the killer of my mother, how to do that. There is no way to sue Israel or to hold it accountable. So it is just a joke when they say Hamas uses a human shield. Actually, Hamas was established to defend our rights.
Sorry, it was a very emotional moment, and I was also absorbing through the emotions as you just mentioned that your mother passed away throughout this conflict, and there is no one that you can sue toward this. I cannot imagine that pain. And if during that, what was the feeling, and how was all of the thing that's going through your mind when you heard about this? Did you just accept to the situation that is going on because all your friends is going through the same thing? Or what happened inside your heart when you heard about that news?
You know that I will tell you something about my mom. My mom was the most important person in my life. It was more important than myself and my wife and my children. I will not tell anything else. When you lose the most important person in your life, how you will feel.
Okay, so that was like the conflict between the Israel and also here back in Gaza. But within Gaza, like we just said about Hamas, there is also some kind of division between Hamas and Fatah. So do you see any reconciliation between the two?
Actually, yes. There is a chance to have reconciliation between them. And they agree on the process to end this division. The solution was to hold elections, and the winner will control, and we will have peaceful transit of power. But the problem here, who controls our life? Israel. And we cannot hold elections without taking permission from Israel. So the Palestinians agreed on the elections, and the Palestinian Authority sent a request to Israel to hold that elections in 2021. Until now, Israel didn't reply. We are waiting.
You're still waiting for that?
Yes.
Okay. So if there is any reconciliation, both within and outside of Gaza, what is the precondition for peace?
Between
Israel.
Between Israel and Palestine.
Yeah.
Actually, there is just always a chance for peace. But they need to accept our rights to be equal. They need to accept that the right they have should be also the Palestinians have. they cannot enjoy only the rights they have, independence, liberation, equality, justice, and the Palestinian, they don't have this one. The Palestinian will not accept that. They will not stop their struggle and resistance until they have the same right as our counterpart Israeli have. This is the main point. Israel actually, the only offer from Israel is peace for peace. Don't attack us and we will not attack you. But the problem here, there is no liberation and no equality. This kind of peace is good for slaves. But the problem here, we are not slaves. And we will not accept that. We will not accept peace without liberation and equality. We want to be equal and right.
Well, Hazem, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing with us your personal experience. And I am truly sorry for your loss of the most important person in your life, but I'm sure she will be in heaven looking over you. And I pray for God to gain peace.
Thank you so much for your emotion. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
欧洲近来频频传出逮捕中国间谍事件，为什么近期共谍特别多？广告之后带您了解。就在习近平5月初启程出发访问欧洲前夕，德国和英国分别以间谍相关罪名逮捕收押了好几名政界相关人士。当局指控这些人泄露了欧盟相关资讯给中国。这消息爆发后，在欧洲引发的是一片哗然。
飞机舱门一开，中国国家主席习近平牵着第一夫人彭丽媛微笑挥手，抵达法国巴黎奥利机场。就算当地下着小雨，法国总理阿塔尔亲自迎接。
60年来，中法关系始终走在中国同西方国家关系前列。中法关系发展不仅给两国人民带来福祉，也为动荡不安的世界注入了稳定性和正能量。
今年正好是中法两国建交60周年，不过光是这个理由，恐怕还没办法让习近平移尊就灶。他这趟5月5号到10号的出访行程，除了法国之外，还拜访匈牙利和塞尔维亚。3国的共同点是跟中国关系挺不错的。
中国愿同包括法国在内的世界各国一道，在相互尊重基础上发展友好合作关系，携手前行，共担风雨，共创未来。
一向自诩为欧洲龙头的马克宏自然不会放过这个机会。
Notre relation bilatérale se fonde, et c'est ce qui en fait la valeur et le succès, sur notre capacité à évoquer en toute confiance tous les sujets. Elle repose aussi sur une communauté d'ambition, la maîtrise de notre destin, la préservation de notre identité.
习近平选在欧洲局势动荡不安的同时出访，用意再明显不过，就是希望能在看似铁板一块的美国盟友欧洲大陆上，凿出1、2个能施力的孔洞。但撇出国家主席亲自出访，中国私下挖洞的行为恐怕已经曝光。
Wir können Spionage gegen uns nicht akzeptieren, egal aus welchem Land sie kommt. Und deshalb muss sie entdeckt und diejenigen, die Verantwortung haben, verhaftet werden und vor Gericht gestellt werden.
德国总理欧拉夫·肖兹脸色凝重地在公开记者会上说出“外国间谍”这个敏感字眼，而且还是中国间谍，正是因为抓到人了。
Der Verdacht, der hier sich gegen Mitarbeiter und Kandidaten der AfD richtet, ist sehr besorgniserregend.
该名中国间谍的本业居然还是德国反对阵营另类选择党 AfD 政治明星马克西米利安·克拉的助理。
Es ist ein sehr schwerwiegender Vorwurf. Nachdem heute der Haftbefehl bestätigt wurde, werde ich noch am heutigen Tag den betreffenden Mitarbeiter
面对大批媒体包围，仍然挤出笑容。克拉现在可是麻烦缠身。欧盟的欧洲议会大选预定在6月举行，克拉正是德国另类选择党推出的首席候选人，但他在4月中才被美国 FBI 约谈，事关涉嫌长期收取来自俄罗斯的秘密政治现金，连帮他工作5年的助理都在4月底被逮捕，理由是向中国泄露欧洲议会资讯。
bin sehr an der Aufklärung interessiert, werde mich darum bemühen, rauszubekommen, was konkret vorgeworfen wird. Wir werden auch bei mir im Büro weiter daran arbeiten, alles zu rekonstruieren.
可别以为这是偶发事件，就在同一周，德国一共有4人因为相同的间谍罪名被逮捕。相隔1000公里外的英国，也有2人因为涉嫌提供敌国有用的物品、笔记、文件或资讯而被指控。2人分别是牛津大学学者和英国保守党中国研究小组总监，后者甚至拥有国会职员证件。依照官方说法，所谓的敌国都是中国。间谍事件在英德2国掀起轩然大波，原本声望逐渐升高的德国另类选择党陷入尴尬境地。
Wenn ich auf die letzten 1-2 Wochen zurückblicke, es tut sich ja immer sehr viel in der Republik, dann sehe ich nur Russland und China rauf und runter, wie hier unsere Partei diskreditiert und in die Mangel genommen wird. Und das geht jetzt schon seit Monaten so.
党魁忙着帮自家人澄清挽救声望，但该党立场长期极右，力道极度排外，怎么会和中俄牵扯上关系？原因就在另类选择党并不赞同德国官方和美国肩并肩的外交方向，认为应该要保持距离，才让另外一方找到可乘之机，并引发执政党社民党的抨击。
Sie wollen ein schwaches Deutschland, Sie wollen die Grundfesten der Europäischen Union angreifen und zerstören. Sie stellen ein Sicherheitsrisiko für unser Land dar, eine Bedrohung für unsere Demokratie, eine Gefahr für Frieden und Sicherheit.
英德2国过去在美国拉起反中大旗时，试着和中国保持友好关系，现在显得格外讽刺。而中国外交部发言人在事发后立刻出面洗地。
所谓中国间谍案，纯属无中生有。中方已就德方的无端指责，向德方提出严正交涉。
记者漂白，就是因为这些间谍案发生在中国国家主席习近平的欧洲之旅之前，时机太过敏感。而习近平为期5天的行程，作为欧洲另外2大巨头的德国、英国，正好也被跳过。
所谓的中国间谍威胁论，在欧洲舆论场并不新鲜。近年来，更是每在中欧双方高层互动的前后，就会出现新一轮的炒作。这种炒作意图十分明显。就是要抹黑打压中国。
不光是英德，欧盟各国对中国的友好态度正在发生变化。4月初，瑞典才驱逐了一名住了20年的中国记者，荷兰和波兰更是突袭了一间中国安全设备制造商，理由都是这些人或公司对本国造成伤害。
Meine Damen und Herren, die Vorwürfe der Spionage für China sind sehr schwerwiegend. Und sollte sich bewahrheiten, dass aus dem Europäischen Parlament heraus diese Spionage stattgefunden hat, dann wäre das ein Angriff auf die innere Verfasstheit der Demokratie in Europa. Und dieser Fall wiegt sehr schwer.
专家认为，类似案件频传，并不是因为中国加强对欧洲的间谍行动，而是欧洲终于开始正视持续已久的乱象，让过去潜藏已久的间谍浮上台面。
Ne očekujem velike projekte zato što je, da kažem, sve što je do sada dogovarano je i bez tih odnosa na najvišem nivou.
尽管塞尔维亚和匈牙利对中国的欢迎举世皆知，也证明欧盟27个成员国对中国立场并不一致，让中国找到可乘之机。但有权管理整体贸易政策的欧盟执行委员会已经拉起防线。
友谊源于交流，多来往，多交流。才能不断地积累共识。
欧盟早就在抗议中国对自家电动车产业的补贴，准备要祭出关税应对。法国正是主导国，德国也呼吁中国要解决产能过剩的问题。如今中国在贸易市场上遭到美国围堵，国内经济危机持续扩大，欧盟市场成为转向的浮木。但争议间谍案不断爆发，欧盟各国开始正视中国威胁。要是这根浮木飘然远去，中国接下来受到的冲击恐怕是难以想象。
感谢您加入今天的国际辩论社，我是刘晨曦，我们下周再会。